welcome to Make Your Passion Pay. I'm Luann Beekler, creator of the Make Your Passion Pay Playbook, your host and guide on this exciting journey to building joyful and successful work environments. Known as the Little Spark, I've helped countless individuals and businesses ignite their potential through transformational coaching, creating thriving businesses and joyful workplaces. I have experienced the challenges of leaving toxic workplaces and building something better. I bring firsthand wisdom to help you align your work with your values. With insights drawn from working alongside world-renowned leaders and a deep passion for community and connection, I'm here to show you how to lead with joy and purpose. Let's dive into today's episode and start making your passion pay. Hi, everybody, and welcome today to the Make Your Passion Pay podcast, where we talk about the 6 C's to making your passions pay, and they are clarity, connection, which equates to core values, community, collaboration, creativity, and commitment. And today I have with me a new friend that I've just met, Larry O'Toole with a Gentle Giant Moving Company. Super excited to share Larry's business philosophy with you today. Larry is the founder and the president of Gentle Giant Moving Company, which he started in 1980 with a borrowed truck and a $17 ad in the Boston Phoenix. Under his leadership, Gentle Giant has grown into an award-winning national moving and storage company known for exceptional service, leadership development, and people-first culture. He is also the author of Heavy Lifting, Building a Business with a Giant Heart, which shares the lessons he has learned about building a successful company without compromising its values. And my audience know how important core values are to me. Welcome, Larry.
I'm so happy to be here, Luann.
Larry, really, you started with a borrowed truck and $17. Tell us your story.
Well, actually, it wasn't even $17 because it was my roommate that took out the ad without even telling me. So it didn't even cost me a nickel.
Well, that was kind of your roommate.
Well, he had a hidden motive. He wanted to rent me his van so he could collect $3 for every hour I worked. So he had an ulterior motive. But no, he's a great friend to this day, and I owe him a great amount of gratitude.
It sounds like it would have been a good collaboration, but as young and back in that day as you were, you probably weren't thinking about it that way, right?
No, I was trying to start a different business actually, and I just needed to get money just to pay for my living expenses. So I was looking for a flexible job where I could work when I had the time and didn't have to work when I didn't. So this was, as he kept pointing out to me, this was perfect because I could just book work whenever I actually was free. And he was right about that, but I ended up falling in love with it.
So what made you believe you could build something better in the moving industry?
Well, well, to be honest, one reason was because the standard was so low at the time. I mean, I think moving has really improved over the years, and there's a lot more good moving companies. But as I went around moving people on a casual basis, I was hearing all the horror stories. And of course, eventually people started asking me to do bigger jobs. And at that point, I still wasn't going to commit. I didn't want to buy a truck or get a license. So I had a friend in the neighborhood who did have a truck and a license. And I asked him if he'd be willing to do a job. If I booked the job, would he be willing to do it and have me on his crew? And he agreed to that. So we matched our calendars. So when he booked a job, he would let me know. And when I booked a job, I would let him know. And he wanted me to work with him on some of his jobs. And the reason I agreed to that was because I had friends that if I couldn't make it, I knew they would meet the standard. So now I was doing bigger jobs and hearing bigger horror stories. Uh, and there were a couple of things that put me over the top of making that final decision. One of them was just telling a customer, sorry, I'm booked that day. I have no availability. And as they searched for a day that I would be free, they weren't able to find a day that worked. And this woman started to cry, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. Uh, I couldn't believe that somebody was acting like there was a death in the family when all it was I couldn't execute the move. But it showed me the fear people had about moving when they had heard the horror stories, experienced horror stories, and were so worried that she actually broke down in tears because she had furniture she'd inherited from her grandmother that she really cared about, but she couldn't really afford to go out and pay one of the best, most established companies at the time. So I was her hope to get the job done affordably, and she started to cry. So that told me something. And I think hearing the horror stories, the final one that put me over the top was customers that told me when I asked about their previous move that the movers showed up, loaded the truck, but never showed up at the new home. And they had to call the police, who found the truck abandoned and all their belongings were gone.
Oh
So
my goodness.
that was the worst. That's probably the worst story that anybody's ever going to hear. But it certainly said to me, forget manufacturing. There's an opportunity here because I was sure that I could have a company that guaranteed quality. And the solution was very simple. It was only hire great people. Because when I was thinking about it and I started going around and meeting the owners of these other companies, not the one that stole all the people's furniture. That was a franchise where somebody had bought a franchise, hired people that said they knew how to move. Anyway, but the local movers, I would knock on the door and I would say, "Hi, my name is Larry, and I'm thinking of starting a moving company. Do you mind if I pick your brain?" But guess what? In every single case, they were welcoming and gracious. It was come in and have a cup of coffee. These were nice people. And I wondered why they had such poor quality. Not all, but some of them. And when I asked what was the biggest challenge to running a moving company, everybody had the exact same answer, which was finding good help. And this baffled me because there's great people out there. But you see, once you have people that are the wrong sort, and then you hire a potentially great employee, they're not going to stick around. And I knew from seeing these companies work that they had disrespectful people working for them. And you could tell from the way they talked to their crew members.
Can
You
I make
know,
a point there, Larry?
sure,
So I want to emphasize here that if you have disrespectful, toxic people on your team,
right.
good people are not going to stick around.
That's exactly right.
And
And
stop trying to keep bodies
right.
and keep good people.
Right. And when people start companies, a lot of these people, their top workers in these small companies were often people that were a cousin or a brother-in-law or a neighbor or someone they grew up with. that they got in and helped them get going, but then became the big fish in the little pond and was throwing their weight around and disrespecting, like you say, other people coming in the door. And of course, these people, the owners wouldn't really realize how bad it was because they'd be nice to them. But I knew because when I'd see crews working, I would just observe if I was going by on my bicycle. I wouldn't exactly stay on top of them. You only need a few minutes. But when you see somebody standing on the back of a truck, barking orders at people and abusing them if they maybe didn't bring the precise thing they wanted out to the truck, I mean, I would think if that was my company, I'd know what to do. I'd close my doors and get into a different business. That was just so unacceptable. And if you run a business that's that bad, just get into something else because that can't be fixed. You know, once you have bad people, you basically have to start with a clean slate. You
So,
can't.
yeah, so you told me from the very beginning that you placed a strong emphasis on hiring good people, and I can't emphasize that enough
Right,
because I think you hire good people
right,
and you train them on the values and
right.
the tools and skill set.
Yes,
Would
as a matter of fact, when I told a good friend of mine that I was, and he was a prominent business person, that I was going to start a moving company, he offered to help me with a business plan. And I told him, look, I have a plan. And he said, well, I'd be happy to look at it. And I said, well, I can tell you what it is. And he said, what is it? And I said, just hire great people, hire nice people, hire people with a great work ethic, hire the kind of people that you'd like to be shoulder to shoulder with in a hard day's work. That was it. And with that single business plan, after the first 5 years, we were named to the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies with that one thing. That's how we ran our company then, and it's how we run our company all these years later. Uh, is just the people coming in the door.
So I have another question, right? I love that philosophy and that at the very heart you knew exactly what you wanted to do, but we all know who are out there running businesses, there's a lot of other things regarding onboarding people, human resources, legal things, um, accounting, billing, all of that. Who did all of that for you?
Well, those some of those things are stuff I want nothing to do with. So I was actually very lucky because I had a young man right at the beginning who was finishing up a master's in business at Boston University, and he was now looking for a job and still working in the meantime. And I asked him if he'd be interested in becoming a partner. And to my surprise and delight, he agreed. And we agreed on a 70-30 split. Actually, I said, what do you think will be fair? He said that. And I said, fine. And so I had somebody who whose integrity I was absolutely confident in, whose work ethic I was completely confident in, and whose competence, I was completely confident in, and he did a fantastic job. And I just didn't have to worry about that stuff anymore. I could just concentrate on sales, operations, and the HR part of hiring and training. And those were the things that I focused on, and I left all the administrative stuff to him.
I love that, right? So one of my passions for my business is to surround myself with people who are experts in areas where I am not.
Well, this was probably the most extreme you'll ever find because you can take any personality test you like and we'll be at opposite ends of the spectrum.
But that's good, right?
We're very different.
Yeah, well, I talk a lot about honoring people's strengths
Right,
letting them work in the area of their strengths. And that's just what you did. You
Yes,
didn't know it necessarily. That's exactly what you were doing, but that indeed is what you were doing. And that's what I encourage my business owners to do today, to really understand the strength of their team members and surround themselves with people that are talented in areas they're not, right? Work
exactly.
work in the area of your genius. And
Correct.
Larry, what it sounds like to me, your genius is in managing, working with, I don't even like the word manage in that context, right?
Yeah. Mm.
It is building a team. That's what it is. It's building a team of
Exactly.
people.
Well, I did run into a bit of trouble with that because as the company grew, I had this person who was absolutely world-class controller, but didn't really have what it took to be a chief financial officer.
Mm.
And when your company is going from 5 million to 10 million, that becomes a challenge. And the reason it was difficult for him was because he was so risk averse. So here I was willing to take risks, trying to work with somebody who was terrified of risk. And I was lucky in a sense because he did ask me to buy him out because he felt he couldn't really be a CFO. And so I bought him out, it's 26 or 7 years ago now. And he said, well, is it okay if I stick around for a year? Well, guess what? He's still here. He's worked all these years. And we have a wonderful controller. And of course, I had to go out and get a professional CFO who was fantastic. So that solved that problem. But it would have been an issue if he had not wanted to leave, or if I had tried to bring in a CFO and have someone who was actually an owner in the business report to somebody who wasn't. So I avoided that, which could have been a real serious problem.
I think it's looking for those opportunities and good communication,
Right,
right?
right.
And one of the other things that I really love about what you've done is built your culture based on your core values.
Well, that's true. However, it should be mentioned that, when I started the company, I was just thinking, will this work if you just hire good people and focus on that and not worry about the bottom line? And that was really great. I didn't talk at the time about culture at all, but uh, as the company grew, I noticed that a lot of the people I hired were people who came in looking for work for a couple of months or a year. They were obviously pursuing other professional careers, but 3 or 4 years later, they were still there. And I would say, I thought you were going to be a teacher or a scientist or whatever. And I'd say, oh, yes, that's my plan, but I'm having such a good time that I'm putting it off. And what they would say is, I love the culture here. So where did this culture come from? Well, it came from the people I was hiring because they were people with integrity. They were people with strong work ethic. They were people who were intrinsically motivated to just go out and do the best job they could every day. And of course, a lot of them were athletes who had displayed these qualities on the playing field or wherever. And and so this culture evolved through those people. But I knew if I was going to have to grow the business, I was going to have to define the culture for people walking in the door. And to that end, I asked everybody at the time, and I had about 50 movers then. I said, when you're going home this weekend, think about our core values, because I want to be able to pinpoint what they are. And so everybody did that, and everybody came in with their list of five, and we put it all together. And it was a long list, but it there was a lot of similarities too. And so we knew that this is what was the absolute definition of our culture. We got those all those values and we distilled them down to what we thought incorporated most of them. And what it was what we call the giant heart, where our values, the word heart spells our values. H for honesty, E for enthusiasm, A for going above and beyond, R for respect, and T for teamwork. And those values, for instance, going above and beyond, it's not like anybody wrote that particular thing on their list. But what we could see was that I'm sorry, uh, I've had distraction here. Sorry. So, but what we could see was that above and beyond incorporated so much of what they had on their lists.
Mm.
And when we looked at teamwork, the same thing. Like a lot of people had put that they really appreciated working for a company where everybody was held accountable. And I thought, well, accountability, that's part of teamwork. Because when you're on a team, you're accountable to everybody. It's not like in a job where you're accountable just to your boss. And some people go around saying, that's not my job, and stuff like that. When you're on a team, you are accountable to everybody. When somebody in basketball makes that behind the back no look pass, you better be there. They don't want to look like an idiot flinging it into the stand. Like they know you're coming down, you're going to be there for that. Everybody's accountable for their responsibilities and positions. And that's how we run our jobs. Everybody has their accountability, and the other members of the team know they can rely on them to take care of their responsibilities and not worry about it and don't have to keep checking up on each other. So that was a lot of what went into teamwork, other than other things like good communication and lack of, we really emphasize conflict resolution, for instance.
So I love the team analogy, and not all of us will hire athletes who get that commitment to a
Right,
team,
right,
but we can train it because everyone knows athletics, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
that's why in the 6 C's to make your passion pay, we call it the playbook.
right. The playbook. Yeah,
Everybody needs to know the playbook,
right.
play by the rules of the playbook. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the people who uh, basically are talking behind other people's backs and basically complaining, they're not team players.
But then you can identify that and you base it in you're not in alignment with our core values.
Right.
Not you're a bad person. We have to let you go for that reason. It's because you're not in alignment with our core values. It's just a gentler way to release people. And I find that when people are out of alignment with core values, they often opt out themselves.
They do opt out themselves, but you still have to be very careful because what you just said is true, but it needs to happen as soon as possible.
Yeah.
You can't be having that conversation after somebody's been around for a year. And
Yeah.
sometimes you hear business owners that we're talking about people that have been around for 2 or 3 years. And now they're wondering, what am I going to do? And to tell somebody after that much time that they don't align with your core values is going to make their head spin. If
Right.
that's the case, then what's different today than yesterday?
Right.
So you really have to be right on top of that when people, because a lot of times business owners, when they hire people, they sigh with relief. Okay, that's covered. Now I can rely on them to do that and I'll focus somewhere else. The opposite is true. That's when you have to put the most focus into something, is when people are new on the job. And also, that's when you really need to, it's really an art. When do you step back? Because when you hire somebody and showing them the ropes and you're training them, you have to know that there's going to come a point where you don't want to be micromanaging them and looking them over the shoulder. There has to become a point where you step back and let them do the job. So you have to be very confident in them at that point. You have to know that this is someone you can rely on, because if they're not, like you say, they're not, in line with your values, they need to move on then. Because if
That,
you move away from it and leave them then, it's not going to go well. You have
right,
to know they fit your values, and you can step back and let them make their own decisions and make their own mistakes and not be on top of them.
right, because one of my uh core recommendations is that you make every decision based on your core values.
Right,
So if you can tell me that what you did, you were specifically thinking about one of the core values in the company,
right.
then even if you made a mistake, let's figure out how to make it better. But if you're completely making mistakes because they're out of alignment,
Oh,
that's a
right.
whole different game. So,
That is
Larry, knowing what you know now,
okay.
right? And how you've built the company and created these core values, would you recommend to other business owners to start earlier in their journey with their core values?
Well, yes. I mean, when I started the business, right around the time I had decided I would do that, it turned out to be my grandfather's 100th birthday. And I went back to Ireland for that, and I was very close with him. And uh, I was talking to him about it, and he said, "Well, he said, here's the thing. The most important thing you're going to do is the first person you hire, because that person will set the standard, and
Mm,
everybody that comes after that will have to meet that standard."
mm.
Because he said, he's from the west of Ireland, and he said, if you piss in your soup, you'll not get it out. And I'll tell you something, it's a weird analogy, but I mean, because I'm thinking that sounds so weird, like, because that's no one's ever going to do that, but it sound disgusting, but yet that's what people do with their businesses.
That's it. That's
You
it.
know,
Love that analogy, Larry. I'm going to use that.
they kind of piss in their soup. Because
Because they
once you
brought in a bad person that's undermining what they're trying to accomplish.
exactly, and so it has to happen right away from the beginning, because that's when you've control over it. You know,
I
uh,
always say if you don't set the standard by establishing the core values,
right.
they will be created for you and you might not like them.
That's exactly right. And yeah, yeah,
You
that
hired
right,
based on great people.
right.
Those great people bubbled up the core values for
That,
you.
that's right. Because even though they weren't, I mean, there were things that people saw, like our integrity, how we took care of customers. There was, in fact, we would do something that I would think is just normal. And they would say, God, where I worked before, that wouldn't have happened, because they wouldn't want to lose money by saying to the customer, by the way, this went wrong and we're going to have to fix it for you, uh, unless they were absolutely held, caught red-handed almost.
Right.
So people saw that, and it attracted people to the company. And also with regard to our payroll and everything else, the fact that we were so honest with our own people
Excellent.
and weren't going to be cavalier with the, pay or anything. We wanted to make sure that everyone was well taken care of, and
Another,
emphasizing to people to be transparent with customers. So even though today we have honesty in our core values, back then that was spoken about constantly.
I think transparency is a word that you just said that is really important today. When you, as a leader, look like you're trying to hide something, everybody knows it.
That's
Tran-
exactly right.
and if you teach transparency to your team
Right.
and then they treat your clients with transparency,
Right.
we're all feel stronger about the relationship.
Yeah.
What I'm also hearing, Larry, is that you care for your employees. And although that should be common, it's
It
not
should be.
common.
Well, everybody pays lip service, everybody says it. It's just you can get into a situation where uh, it's just doesn't seem to be in your interest.
Well,
You
your
know,
CEOs, business owners get so focused on the pressure of the bottom line,
bottom line, right?
they forget about the importance of their greatest asset,
Right.
which is their team, their employees. And if
Yeah.
you stop caring for them, it's kind of like any relationship, right? If
Mhm.
you ignore your spouse and stop having a strong relationship with them, they're going to leave, right? Like we got to
Yeah.
care for all of our relationships.
Yeah.
Your employees are your greatest asset in a company. And I
Yes.
think that's what you're exemplifying here, Larry, and I love it
Right.
so much.
Because sometimes in our business, a customer will accuse you of scratching or breaking something, and you know damn well you didn't. But people would observe what we would do. We would not fight with the customer. If you try to have a good conversation where you listen to them and see their point of view and see if you can bring them around. But at the end of the day, you're going to take care of them. And that sense sets value for others. And we have customers that you might call them customer for life who really appreciate us and keep coming back to us. But if you ran the clock back, you'd see that they put in a stupid claim a long time ago. We took care of it, and they're so appreciative. Nobody, well, I won't say nobody, but it's very, very rare that somebody will put in a claim just to try to take money away from you. I know those people exist, maybe one in 1,000, but most people, when they say, oh, the movers did whatever, they really believe it's true.
Yeah,
And, it's not because they're trying to put one over on you.
yeah.
So you have to respect that. And if you wind up taking care of them, it comes back to you later. They'll come back to you the next time they're moving and they'll appreciate being taken care of and not being given a big argument,
Right.
which is
So
what they'd get from an insurance company.
one of my current clients were working with their team on assuming positive intent.
That's exactly right.
Assuming positive intent, whether you're talking to a client, a team member, etc., right? That
Oh,
people are more often not trying to get something over on you.
yeah,
They just believe it with their heart and soul from their perspective. And
right.
there's 360 degrees to any situation of different perspectives. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's so gratifying to hear you say that. Positive intent. That was what you said.
yep.
Now, you see, there's this thing that people say, the customer is always right. And it's such a bunch of nonsense because how could they be right all the time? That's impossible. So, so you don't worry about whether they're right or wrong. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is the positive intent.
Right.
And so we don't say positive intent because we didn't think of it, but what we say is seeing things from their point of view.
I
So
love
work
that.
on seeing things from the customer's point of view. And the way you do that is by two things, listening and asking questions. And if there's a third thing, it's simply repeating back what you think you heard just to make sure you got it right. And that's how you see things from their point of view. And that's when they'll be willing to listen to you because they see it's demonstrated that you listen to them. And we coach that. And we don't say some inane nonsense like the customer is always right. Because, I've often seen employees at other business go, oh, I guess the customer's all right, It's like, even though the customer is being ridiculous.
Right.
Well, that's not the way to look at it. You have to simply say, okay, what's their point of view? Why do they think what they're thinking? And then you can have a conversation.
Well, and so giving yourself time to think and take a minute on that is important.
Right.
So in my book, Exceptional Care for Your Valued Clients, we talk about avoid using the word no. Because the minute you say no to someone, their back hairs go up and they're ready for a fight. So instead say, let me check into that, let me think about it, let me consult my colleague, and then come back with options for the client of how you can resolve the situation so that they get to choose the resolution.
Well, that's true. We actually go a step further.
I love it.
Uh, we say when we hire people, we hire them because we trust them and we put them out there in the field. And after they go through training, etc., we now know we can trust them. And we say, listen, we're always going to do what's in the customer's best interest. So you don't have to check unless you feel the need to.
Mm.
If you make a decision that you think is the right one that'll make the customer happy, go ahead and make it. And occasionally you might do something that wouldn't get approved by management, supposedly, but nobody's going to yell at you. We'll just have a conversation later and say, maybe we gave away too much on that. But you do what you feel is in their best interests,
Yep.
and we will back you up, even
Yep.
if we don't agree with you.
Absolutely
That's
agreed, Larry.
yeah,
What I was using those words in exchange with a customer,
right.
giving the employee or team member time to think.
Time to think, right,
Time to think and make their own decision in the
right,
best interest of the
right.
client relation.
Yeah, I mean, let me think
Absolutely.
about it is probably a very good thing to say in any situation.
Take a minute, take
Yeah,
a breath, think about it.
right, right,
Absolutely.
right, right, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So, Larry, I know you have, what is it, 28 offices across the country?
26.
26. So, how do you maintain culture and those values that all of those locations are successful? Because you said to me, you're not a franchise
Right,
because franchise people buy franchises to make money,
right,
whereas you're instilling an organization with values and
right,
culture.
exactly. And I think, first of all, when I first decided that I would grow the business, because we were very successful in one place, getting almost up to $10 million with just one location, the idea of growth, people discouraged me from it by saying, well, your whole thing is the quality of your work. And if you grow this business, that'll be great and you'll do fine. But don't forget, you won't be able to maintain this quality or this culture. And that to me was sort of like
Challenge
a
on.
challenge. And I would say, oh, okay, well, watch me. And so what I was committed to was promoting from within. And that's because anyone that comes up through your system is steeped in your culture, knows your culture, has stuck around because of your culture, and has demonstrated already how much they believe in it and carry it out. So those are the people running our offices. They are people who were hired as entry-level people. Very often they didn't at the time have the ambition of staying in the moving industry, but they came in, they fell in love with it, although, this is embarrassing to say it, but maybe they became addicted to it. And so they were addicted to Gentle Giant. But
Yeah.
anyway, they lived it, they breathed it, the culture. So you knew when they went out and ran an office, they knew what we were all about. And the most gratifying thing for me is visiting these offices and seeing that they're carbon copies of what I had when I first started. The right kind of people with the right attitude doing the right thing. And I think what's great is to get letters from customers who have had us do work for them in different cities and said the experience was identical. Uh, one woman that was moving from North Carolina to San Francisco, uh, her mother was getting elderly, and the idea was that she obviously didn't want to, she wanted to move closer to her mother, but her opportunities were in San Francisco, and her mother lived in DC. So after loading her things, we had to go to DC and load her mother's things. And she said she was so sad because she wasn't going to see those movers again, other than the driver. But then she found our DC crew equally engaging, you see, and was just equally happy. And so when she had to go up to White Plains, New York, and load things from her ex-husband's house, she saw our New York crew, same experience, and she was selling her summer home in the Rhode Island coast. And we went there to get some things from there, and she met our Rhode Island crew. And then when she ended up in San Francisco, she saw our San Francisco crew. And that was probably the best letter I ever got because it talked about the consistency from one place to the other, that she had the identical experience everywhere she went, the same approach, the same attitude. And that's very gratifying. But I'm not saying it might be the only way to do it, but the way I did it was by bringing people up through our leadership program and our training, and knowing when they went out there that they knew exactly what we're all about, and duplicated it
Yeah.
and have been very successful.
Yeah. I just love your story, Larry. I love that it started with people and it's still based on core values, and you've created an amazing culture.
Thank you.
And I believe you have a lot more lessons for my audience from your book. Remember, the book title is Heavy Lifting: Building a Business with a Giant Heart. You now know part of the giant heart story is their core values.
Right.
And again, grab the book up for a lot more great business lessons. And hopefully Larry will come back again in the future. Would that be all right?
Oh, I'd absolutely love to. Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Larry. We'll make sure links to his social media are in the show notes, as well as links to purchase the book to make that easier for you as our audience. We really appreciate your time today, Larry.
Thank you, Luann.
Everybody go out and live your passion and make your passion pay through creating
Yes,
core values
do it.
and a powerful culture.
Yes, I made my passion pay. There you go.
Thanks again, Larry. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye, Luann.
Bye, Larry.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Make Your Passion Pay. If today's episode inspired you, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a rating, and share your thoughts in a review. Every listener makes a difference in spreading this mission of joy and purpose. Want to take the next step? Share this episode with your friends, colleagues, or anyone looking to build a thriving, values-driven workplace. Together, we can create communities where passion fuels success. Until next time, remember, when you lead with joy, you inspire greatness. Let's keep making your passion pay.